What's up, everybody? It's Johnny King with another episode of the Becoming Kings podcast. I'm here with Stephan Spencer, an SEO expert. He's had a bunch of different businesses. He's a podcaster, author, best-selling author, serial entrepreneur. I could go on and on and on, but we'll jump right into it. Hey, man, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We connected through the good old world of Tony Robbins, and it was cool to start chatting with you a couple of weeks ago initially, because our paths didn't necessarily cross in person at a Tony Robbins event per se, but it's been fun to see your illustrious career, but then also how much personal development and Tony Robbins particularly kind of pivoted or transition your life on a different trajectory since. So I want to get into all that good stuff. But with this podcast being Becoming Kings, it's really just about guys living their best lives, not compared to others, not about just the glitz and the glam. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's to a lot of what we've learned through Tony. It's the science of achievement and the art of fulfillment. So I want to talk about those things in whatever way shows up in this conversation. But I just wanted to say thank you for being here. I'm just excited to kind of dig into all the good things that you've got going on, and where you're headed with life. So yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah, well, thank you. And something that just popped in my mind for me as you were talking is the experience I had of kind of surrendering and letting go of the outward style and flair and everything of trying to attract the ideal mate. This was back in 2012 after a breakup with my then fiance. And I was studying pickup. I was learning from Neil Strauss, who was one of the most famous pickup artists, wrote The Game.
Read it.
Yeah. And I just surrendered and let all that go. I could have used all those techniques, but I didn't. And that's when the woman of my dreams showed up, because I prayed for her to show up. It was at a Tony Robbins event. It was a Date with Destiny. A mutual friend, a platinum partner, introduced us. And I had let my walls down. And I didn't know this at the time, but a friend had taken a photo of us shortly after we met, like less than an hour after we met, and we looked like old souls.
That's
just
so cool.
Reuniting. And in actuality, we were. I didn't know that at the time. I just met her, but there was this moment 5 or 10 minutes into meeting her where she had mentioned, I didn't get the Diksha, I didn't get touched during that process in the last night of the event where everybody gets blessed. And she got missed. A lot of people actually get missed because it's a little chaotic, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I know how to do this. I can give a Diksha. I became a blessing giver in India a couple months earlier. And when I put my hands on her and started praying for her, and the more you pray for the person, the more divine grace flows through you from above into the person through your hands. And I prayed for her like she was my soulmate. And I knew. And this is so anti-pickup. This is the exact opposite.
So true.
To bare my soul in that way, and to then 18 hours later tell her I love you. And she said it back. And then 9 days later, I proposed to her in a hot air balloon above the Las Vegas desert. That is like totally off script for the pickup artist, where you're negging and all this sort of ridiculous stuff.
Yes.
Of course, she said no. She said not yet, because it had only been 9 days. I mean, what woman in their right mind would say yes without a little bit more time and kind of proof in the pudding? But even though it was the most awkward 20-minute descent back down to earth, and it was super awkward also for the pilot, who had never had a failure. He told me, I've been batting 100. I asked him, like, have you ever had a failed proposal in one of your balloon rides? Never.
Yeah.
Well, I was his first. And he was holding the phone, taking video. I was on one knee in this tiny little basket. It was oh my goodness, it was crushing.
Humbling to say the least.
We were all bawling all the way down, but
Yeah.
it brought us closer together. And when I re-proposed to her 9 months later, where she prayed for me to show up 2 days prior, 48 hours prior to us meeting, she prayed for her soulmate to show up. I prayed for my soulmate to show up 12 hours beforehand, as I was in the last minutes of preparing my poster board. You have the relationship vision,
Yes.
and you have the mission statements and power virtues, the way from values towards values. I was working on all that last minute. And as I finished the relationship vision, I prayed to God, please bring her to me right away. And I made sure to emphasize those words right away.
Right away.
Boom. 12 hours later, we were introduced.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Well, and you know how Tony says, God's delays aren't God's denials.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's one of
great.
those things where she might have said no. She might not have said no. She just said maybe not yet. Right.
Well, she did say not yet. I mean, she said no and well, not yet.
Yeah.
So I heard the no more than I heard the not yet, but I got both parts of it, and it made sense, but it was tough at the time to process. I had gotten the ring and everything. I was sure. There was nothing I was more sure of. And yet you get thrown a curveball and you gotta kind of run with it, roll with it, whatever the expression is. So that's what we did, and we were inseparable. We didn't have any big kind of challenge from that. It was just a tough day.
Oh, I'm sure, but it brought, like you said, it brought you closer, right?
Yeah.
See, what I think is fascinating about this conversation already is that, I've learned, I definitely have spent a lot of time buying online dating programs and programs on love and relationships, and done stuff with Tony Robbins, of course, and that sort of thing. I've read a couple of Neil Strauss's books, including the Game, but I read those, and there is the allure of like, oh gosh, at least the way that he writes is like, if you learn these techniques, you could certainly avoid a lot more rejection. And yet there's a part of me that felt like I'm already so much in my head over analyzing things. This makes me think even more like the whole game of dating and relationships is more again mathematical, or like you're just running scripts.
Yeah. So many techniques, so many. I learned all of them. I learned so many, like IOIs, indicators of interest.
Yeah.
I mean, that's ninja. Like if you squeeze her hand and she squeezes back, that's an indicator of interest. If she's playing with her hair while you're talking to her, that's an indicator of interest. It's just, there's so many giveaway tells that help you to see if you're on the right track, if you're calibrating, if you've deviated off the path or whatever. And yet it wasn't about that. I realized those tactics are not how you connect with your soulmate. That is not how you surrender, or you make God your partner in whatever you're trying to do, whether it's build the relationship of your dreams or the business of your dreams. You make God your partner, your business partner, your partner in life, to make these things come to fruition in a meaningful way. And that's when all the magic happens. That's when the miracles happen. So you do a little technique and you hand your phone to the person with the phone number dial ready to go for them to punch in their number, and then you get the phone back, and then you hit the green button to hit play, or I mean to hit a dial, and then if their phone rings, then they gave you a real number, and if it didn't, then like all this stuff is tactical nonsense. And it reminds me of a great quote from The Art of War. I love this quote: "Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat."
Amen to that. Amen to that. I think it's interesting because I've recently gone through a a breakup, like we were talking right before I started recording with you. And, some of my friends were like, have you started dating again? I was like, no. Have you gotten back online with dating apps? I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm thinking like, okay, how am I going to change things up? If I keep getting the same results in many regards, although I definitely see a lot of progress, a lot of growth, I've been focusing more on just meditating and focusing on connecting, similar to what you were talking about, but connecting with just that feeling of love for her, even if I don't know a name or a face just yet. But maybe I do. Maybe I have met her,
Well, you've
and
met her, but not yet in this lifetime.
mm,
There's this concept I've learned. I've had this big spiritual epiphany, and a couple of them. One was in India on a Platt trip in 2012, right before meeting my now wife.
yeah.
But there was a more recent one this year, and this recent one kind of unveiled the matrix for me. And one thing I recognize now after this second level of awakening is that our soulmates and us, we have a soul contract that we agree to before we incarnate.
Mm.
So whoever this person is out there, this woman of your dreams, you and her, you guys are destined to meet. And it might be just a chance occurrence of you just miss the subway or whatever. And then she's there on the platform. Or it could be that you just catch it and she's on the other side in the subway train, whatever it is. But there's these synchronicities, they're the chance occurrences that aren't chance, and they're preordained. So if you can kind of connect to where you are in the higher dimensions, like your higher self, there's the physical version of you, but there's the higher self, the kind of up in the heavens part of your soul that you can connect with, and you can ask guidance and say, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to actually get on one of these dating apps, or am I supposed to get out and hang out at coffee shops and do my emails every morning at Starbucks? Or what am I supposed to do here? How do I speed this process up? Because I really want her in my life now, and I feel like I'm ready. I've done my work. And the important thing I did in my relationship vision is I made sure to make a whole section about who I would be in the relationship. How am I going to show up? What's the relationship going to be like? She going to be like? Yes, but who am I going to be? Because if I am needy or petty or have fear of abandonment or whatever it is, I better heal that first so that I don't have somebody who is the complement of those unmet needs. I want to feel complete and whole. And there's this great quote about what a soulmate is. It's from Edgar Cayce. He was a very famous clairvoyant who lived in the previous century, and he channeled his higher self. So he, instead of connecting to some person from hundreds of years ago or whatever, or I don't know, last century, Albert Einstein or whatever, he connected to his higher self. And what he said about soulmates is this: a soulmate is an ongoing connection with another individual that the soul picks up again in various times and places over lifetimes. We are attracted to another person at a soul level, not because that person is our unique complement, but because by being with that individual, we are somehow provided with an impetus to become whole ourselves. So this soulmate who's waiting for you, who's in your vortex, you just don't have a picture of her yet. You don't know where she lives. Right. She is the impetus for you to become whole in this lifetime. She's not your other half, the unique complement, the two peas in a pod sort of thing. She is the person who's going to make you grow the most in this lifetime.
Just it's so profound, and I when you say it, just it resonates, deeply, because I feel like, again, so much is the younger version of me. It's been trying to control everything, and it's rather than, to your point, we're surrendering.
Yeah.
And
By the way, your audio went really weird, like you're using a different mic.
yeah, I am. Something changed on my end that I'm working on. I don't know why, but
Okay.
hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yep. It's just a bit echoey, but yeah, that's fine.
And I saw a video on social media just even earlier today of Esther Perel saying, rather than so much focusing on like, what do I want? What do I want to get? You got to focus, to your point. And I've heard it before. Who do you want to attract by essentially, you being everything you want to be, versus waiting, like you said, to attract your other half, or I'm looking for someone who just makes me so much better. It's like, no, to me, and that's a big part of this podcast, is having guys say, I can feel proud of who I am today, and I know I'll always improve, but becoming kings is with or without, someone to share your life with. It's about a bigger purpose, and then funny how things flow and connect when you are able to finally surrender and let go of attempting to control things that you can't.
Yeah. And speaking of flow and getting those things to just manifest, if you think of what could be blocking your destiny, your soulmate connection or whatever, a lot of times it has to do with karmic debt or unfinished business with your ex or exes. And if you can heal that, rather than leave just chaos and mayhem in your wake, but you make sure that you leave the person better off than you found them. And I know you had, as you said, you had a recent breakup. I mentioned this to you before we started recording. I'm going to mention it now. Ho'oponopono, which is an ancient Hawaiian prayer, essentially. It's a principle, it's a concept, it's a process where you can have resolution to whatever the thing is that you are dealing with, whether it's healing or coming to peace and closure in a relationship that hasn't worked or has already ended, or if it's grieving and you have lost somebody, so they're now on the other side and you miss them terribly. Ho'oponopono actually works for that too. There's a great book I've been reading. It's called Ho'oponopono, Your Path to True Forgiveness. It's by Matt James. I love this book. And the introduction talks about his little 5 or 6-year-old girl, daughter at the time. I think she's probably well into her teens now, but at the time, she had lost her best friend. This little girl in kindergarten losing your best friend, like gone, and how devastating that can be. And the circumstances of that, she died from cancer, but one day she came into school and she didn't feel well and she couldn't really eat her lunch. So she went to the nurse's office, and this guy's daughter went with the best friend to the nurse's office. Her mom came, picked her up. She never came back. Devastating. And then she started not wanting to eat because she connected the dots in her little kindergartner mind of you eat, you don't feel well, you go home, and you never come back. And her friends that were also really good friends with this girl who passed from cancer, they had developed, by the time they were 9 or 10, pretty serious eating disorders. But the difference was with this girl, the author's daughter, she healed from it because of Ho'oponopono. He did these exercises with her, and it's very simple. It's so simple. It's 4 statements. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And I love you. That's it. Now you can use that as a scaffolding for a whole conversation, or you can just simply say those 4 sentences The person doesn't even need to be in your physical presence. The person doesn't even need to be on this physical plane. They could have already passed away. But by doing this with the person, with that soul, you can achieve such incredible healing and completion, fulfillment of the soul contract that you had with this person. It's really, really beautiful. And the process I use for it is a little bit of a variation. Still uses the common 4 sentences with I expound on them, but with this crucial difference. I ask Archangel Gabriel, who's the messenger angel, to deliver the message for me. And so I say something along these lines: Archangel Gabriel, can you please deliver the following message in the way and with the timing that yields the most benevolent outcome for this person, whoever it is, and everyone involved. And then I say, and here's my message. I'm deeply sorry for offending you or hurting you or neglecting you or whatever it was. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I thank you for bringing this lesson to my attention. I thank you for being part of my life. I thank you for choosing me to be your life partner, friend, child, whatever, parent, etc. And then I love you. I love you. Really, really powerful. And you can do it once. You can do it every night for a week, 2 weeks. You'll get something will shift. Something will shift. You will get a powerful healing, and then you'll be ready for the next chapter.
See, I feel like this is a conversation that there's just no coincidences, because I've just really been focusing, for me personally, and I think so many guys that are working through their woundings, their trauma, their pain. I personally have been working on just forgiving myself. There's a lot of need for forgiveness because I judge myself so much. I think a lot of us are hard critics of ourselves. And so I feel like that's something that this is such an easy, would you call it a prayer? So yeah.
It's a prayer. It really is.
It's a simple prayer that anyone can adopt. And like you said, just practice. It doesn't take much more than that. So
you can do it on a daily basis, just in conversations that you're already having with people, right? So let's say that you're in conversation with your kid, you're in conversation with your brother or sister, or with your parent.
Right.
And it's like, all right, I want to have a higher level conversation with this person. Let's say it's a parent, and you're like, okay, how are you doing? How are things? Anything new? Instead of that, just say, you know what? I want to get something off my chest. I want to acknowledge how much you've done for me, even though you didn't have the tools and resources at the time that you were raising me. And I love you so much, regardless of whatever water under the bridge and mistakes made by both sides, by both of us. I love you, and I am so grateful for you. Thank you for bringing me into this world, for raising me, for making all the sacrifices that you made. I'm so appreciative of that. And I am sorry for the trouble and the challenges and the tough love and the rebellion and all that stuff. I really am sorry. I know I wasn't easy, and please forgive me. And when you go from I'm sorry to please forgive me, then it goes from like a one-way, I don't know, just expression of your contriteness to a conversation, and now you are waiting for a response. If you just tell somebody I'm sorry, that can be misread as flippant or insincere. I'm sorry I'm 20 minutes late. I really am sorry. Oh yeah, you're sorry until the next time that happens, and then you're 30 minutes late. Okay, I'll just wait for that one. But if you say, please forgive me, and then you just zip it and you wait for a response, that's a conversation. You care about what they have to say next. You're not just on to the next topic.
It's powerful, really powerful. What's interesting is, again, looking through your websites, looking through your bio, all the good things that you've done, we could have had a conversation very easily about writing books and starting companies and a lot of that, the science of achievement, if you will, right? Would you say that the Tony Robbins was a shift where you started focusing more on fulfillment? Was this a piece that you were already kind of dialed in on? How would you say, because I just feel like I'm talking to a wise soul here of a man that's, done his work and, made the rounds, so to speak,
Yeah. Well, I love your question. And I was a hot mess prior to Tony Robbins. 2009, October, it was the Unleash the Power Within event in Chicago.
And we talked
and
about
you were
that.
there.
I was there. Yeah.
I didn't meet you then, but that was your first event. That was my first event.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, there are no coincidences. There really aren't. Tony says this. There are no coincidences. So what is it about that event that shifted me? Well, it was the fire walk. It was realizing I could walk on my bare feet and on 2,000-degree hot coals without even getting a water blister. That made me shift my thinking around what's possible and what is holding me back. What fears are keeping me from, for example, getting LASIK surgery. I also was losing my hair. My hairline was really receding. And so I went and got a hair transplant. That was 3 months after UPW, but 3 weeks after UPW, I went and got LASIK. No more glasses. And I changed my diet. I changed my workout regimen. I started really working out. I became literally unrecognizable from the previous version of myself. And I've got a picture I'll share of the 12-year earlier version of me. And I have to tell you, I didn't love this guy until pretty recently, but I totally love this guy now. But this was me.
Yeah.
Unrecognizable.
I saw photos of you on the different magazines that you were on and things like that from the 80s and the 90s. I'm like, which one is he? I don't understand. Yeah, you really have made it an amazing physical transformation as well as a mental,
Yeah, so that's the thing too, is it was all physical, emotional, mental in the beginning. So it started with UPW. Then I went 2 months after that to Business Mastery, or was it 5 months after that? Whenever the next event was, it was Business Mastery. Which great story around that of how I managed to afford that when there was no way I could afford it. I love the story of the Bentley that Tony shares. We'll circle back to that.
Yes.
And then there was Business Mastery 2 in Fiji in September, and by that point, I was a different looking person. I was unrecognizable by then. It took 10 months because I had to grow the hair in and I, had to make all those changes. But the spiritual shift in me was where I became internally unrecognizable from who I was before, because the external is great. And, the mindset and all that is internal, but that's more of an outer layer of it. I mean, in the deep depths of your soul, who are you? Because you're not an SEO expert, you're not an author, you're not a podcaster, you're not a consultant or any of that. You are a pure and beautiful soul, and you have a mission on this earth in this lifetime. You've got soul contracts to fulfill. You have a soulmate to hook up with and to reveal incredible light in the world. And most of us kind of are going through our lives blissfully ignorant of all this. Many of us, and me included. It wasn't until age 42 when I went to the Oneness Platt trip in India in October of 2012 where I woke up. And that's when I became aware of the bigger picture, that I had a relationship with God that I didn't even realize I had. I didn't even believe in God. I was agnostic, almost atheistic up until age 42. And it was at that event where a monk, a oneness monk, touched me on the head, gave me a diksha, just like I gave to my wife in Date with Destiny. And that particular monk was in such a high vibrational state that it zapped me. It was an LSD trip. Not that I know what LSD is like. I've never done drugs, but everything was technicolor. It was like a cartoon, most vibrant colors. It was trippy. And I felt this deep sense of connection, peace. I was one with the creator. I was one with the fabric of creation. It was incredible. I'd never felt anything like that before. And all I got was touched on the head. Changed everything. It changed my whole life. So I have Tony to thank for that awakening, because he put that trip together. I have Tony to thank for my marriage, my wife being in my life. And I have Tony to thank for my physical transformation. I mean, who knows? I could have died of a heart attack by now if I had kept on going the way I was going in 2007, 8, 9. And sometimes it takes a Mack Truck to hit us, to wake us up. And that's exactly what happened. 2009, I did not know Tony Robbins from Adam Ant at that point in my life. Infomercial guy, right? Who is this guy? It was a combination of 3 different people telling me in a short span of time, like a week, you got to go to this Tony Robbins. What? Tony Robbins? Who? Go to this event. It's in Chicago. You need to go. I was in the depths of despair. I was going through a divorce. I was in depression. I felt despondent and unresourceful. And that was my bottom out moment. So I was able to then use that as a kind of a platform to bounce off of and reboot my life. But sometimes the biggest pain, the biggest headache or suffering or whatever in our life is our biggest gift. My wife, also a podcaster, couples who podcast together stay together, by the way.
Yes.
So her podcast is Stellar Life, by the way, but her truism that I love sharing with people is that it's always a gift, but sometimes the bow is on the bottom. For me, that was my bow on the bottom gift moment, where I was just so in a lost place because of the divorce. I didn't want a divorce, but it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me.
We have very similar stories in that sense. And I've for my love of how much Tony Robbins changed my life, I have sent and brought along with me a lot of my friends. And I think initially I wanted to give them this gift. This has changed my life. And then it was a little humbling to have guys be like, yeah, that was good. And not necessarily connect as deeply as I did. But now I realized, to your point, I was at such a low point in my life. And little did I know, after I was coming back from my first, or my second UPW, that's when my ex informed me that the marriage was over. Had I not had Tony and gone through that, like, I don't know if I would be still at the bottom of a barrel or even alive, for that matter, But I think it does take sometimes a depth of despair, or just getting down to your ground zero sometimes, to be able to come back from the ashes, right, and make something of yourself. But I think sometimes that's why good is the enemy of great, in that sense, where, like, if things are pretty good, and I think a lot of men are there too, it's like, things are pretty good, but then they're feeling like something is just missing, right? There's another level that they're just like, I don't know why I'm not as fulfilled, because on paper I should be so much happier than I am, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It sounds like you've gone through that probably once, if not many times, you know?
Yes. Yes. And, you know, a few things come to mind as you're talking. One is that when you pay attention. So
Yeah.
your friend that you sent to UPW or whatever, and you
Yep.
probably gifted him a ticket.
Mm-hmm.
What did he pay? What was his investment? What was his skin in the game? Zero, right? I've sent team members, staff to Tony Robbins events like UPW. One guy, really smart, switched on guy, young, and I just thought he's going to eat this up. He skipped day 4. What the heck? I was flabbergasted. Like, that's the last time I'm giving away a Tony Robbins event. Like, that just does not assist that person or anyone else. And then the other thing that came to my mind was, you know how there's this great documentary, I'm Not Your Guru, about Tony.
Yep.
I think this is really critical. It's important that you don't put anybody, Tony or anyone else, on a pedestal.
Yep.
Because if you do, you are elevating the messenger above the message. It's all about the message. In fact, you can get the message direct. We're all psychic. We can all get guidance from above, direct. We don't have to go through an intermediary. So yeah, it's just not about the messenger. Like, I haven't been to a Tony Robbins event in years, and it's not that I think less of him. It's just that I've moved on, and I'm getting a lot more of the guidance direct now from the creator, from my divine. I'm getting guidance direct from my spiritual guides, angels, like stuff that I would have thought was a little Looney Tunes a year ago. Has happened since that wake up moment on January 22nd this year, which I maybe should share a little bit, but I know we're getting close to time, so maybe
I'd love it.
for
Love
another. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll do the speed version of this. On January 22nd, I prayed to God for a job. Now I have a successful business. Why would I pray for a job? This was because 3 months earlier, in preparation for interviewing Sheila Gillette, a pretty famous psychic medium who wrote the Fifth Dimension book and several others, she had explained her near-death experience in 1969 on this video that I watched as I was preparing to interview her. I was doing my research, and she said, I was having complications from giving birth, from childbirth, and it was an embolism, and it was really bad, and I was on my way out. Right? It was like last rites sort of moments.
Wow.
She prayed to God, please let me raise my kids. Let me stay on this planet. Please give me a job. I'll do anything. Just give me a job. And Jesus showed up at the base of her bed, smiling. This beautiful energy flows into the top of her head, into her crown chakra. She heals overnight, like instantly, to the shock and amazement of all the doctors. She defied all the odds. And then she started having psychic abilities. She started channeling, and then she started to channel archangels. She channels 12 archangels. They go by the group name of Theo. They don't identify themselves individually. She's the real deal. Absolutely. No doubt.
Wow.
No doubt. And so that stuck with me, that video of her talking about praying for a job. And so on January 22nd, I prayed for a job. And I didn't say this explicitly, but this was implied. I don't want to have a near-death experience in order to get it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And here's where we circle back to the Mack Truck, because I mentioned that earlier, right? So sometimes it's a Mack Truck that shows up. You don't have to get the Mack Truck. It could be that you intercept that much earlier on in the journey, and when you're starting to get feathers landing gently on your shoulder, and you're like, you know what? I feel like I better call this person, or I better make peace with this person, or I better turn right today instead of turning left, or whatever. You take the intuitive hits.
Totally.
And you follow them.
Totally.
And you can ignore them. It's super easy to, but then they turn into bricks. And when the bricks fall on you, those hurt.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you get the cancer scare or whatever.
Yeah.
But then the Mack Truck, you hit rock bottom, and that shifts everything. That shakes your entire world, and you need it at the time, but you didn't have to have it. You could have opted to make the shift earlier. You could have even proactively acted even before you get the feathers showing up.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I aim to do everywhere in my life. Since I got that prayer answered, which was instant. It was instant. The veil was lifted or thinned. Let's say thinned. I can't see everything, but I can see the matrix. I can see the matrix. It's incredible. I realize now these times when divine intervention saved me from dying. Like I just thought I got lucky when I walked away from a total car crash that it totaled my car. I was going 65 miles an hour. I was driving all night, fell asleep behind the wheel while still going 65 miles an hour. And I hit a light pole that popped out, totaled the car, but I walked away without a scratch. And I'm like, I see now I had divine intervention. Like I was saved. I would have been
Toast.
Yeah. I would have been toast. And there's so many things like that. And I start getting messages. And like I said, we're all psychic. We can get the direct guidance. You know, sometimes you get this intuitive hit. I was reading this book, You're Born for This by Bruce Wilkinson. There's this great story in there about how this guy comes from Bruce Wilkinson's seminar. He learned all about how to deliver God's miracles and be a delivery agent, pizza delivery guy for God, you know, and this thing that just comes to him. He's this construction worker. He's having a real tough time in his marriage. It's kind of falling apart. And he's talking to this guy, Johnny, who came right from a seminar. And normally he'd switch the topics or whatever. He's like, I feel real uncomfortable talking about this. This time he listened and he waited for something to come to him, an intuitive hit or a psychic message. He blurted out, "You need to go home and make your bed." And the guy that heard this, his jaw dropped. He couldn't believe it. He said, "How did you know?" "My wife tells me all the time that messy bed I leave every morning is indicative of everything that's wrong in our relationship."
Oh, wow.
And so I'm going home at break and I'm going to make that bed before she comes home. Saved her marriage. I saved our marriage. I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. And all you have to do to have those kind of psychic abilities is just ask.
Yeah.
Just make yourself available and say, "I'm ready." And Isaiah, and that's also in that book. In the book of Isaiah, Isaiah was in front at the feet of God, and there's like a board meeting essentially going on with the angels. Like, I'm going to do this miracle. We're going to do that. And who's doing that? And little Isaiah's there. "Send me. Here I am. Send me." I could be you. You could say it. "Here I am, God. Send me. I'm ready. I want to do this." Life-changing. And then you start seeing these happen on a daily basis or a regular basis. And you're like, okay, this is not at all like the physical reality that I thought it was.
Yeah. And truthfully, I've just been, I think, in part of my own journey to just surrendering and just getting exhausted with realizing that the way that I'm doing it isn't working. And I think that happens and you get into your 40s and you're like, okay, I've lived long enough to see that if I don't change, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And are those results what I ultimately want? And then having stepped into Dr. Joe Dispenza this past year, just doing more meditation, I've been just weird things that I cannot explain that I put into my, different podcast episodes. I'm like, okay, something else is going on. And I've been attempting to communicate to the listeners, like this, if you're just stepping into this conversation, let's say, it's not that it's going to go over your head, but there might be some skepticism there. I'm just trying to think of, but I think it's one of those things where if any of it resonates, then it's just worth at least putting some effort into it, or having a conversation, or reaching out to you after this, they listen to this podcast, reaching out to me, just having go a little bit deeper versus just completely writing it off.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
agree with you. There's times I'll be like, this sounds weird or just too airy fairy, but there's part of it where I think this has to do with why we make things out to be so much more complicated in life than they need to be,
Yeah.
and things can truly flow. So,
two really quick responses to that. One is practice the willing suspension of disbelief. That changes everything. That opens the channels.
Love that.
Okay. And I say that the skeptic and the cynic are essentially two sides of the same coin.
Yes.
So if you want to be known as a cynic in this lifetime, keep going down the skeptic path, but it doesn't lead to the big rewards. And the second thing, look for and ask for without a doubt signs. Be open to them and ask for them. I like this, the awakenings that we're all getting. It's contagious. It's beautiful. It's spreading like wildfire. So great, a little example of that. One of my staff, her mom had passed, and she really misses her mom. Through hearing a bit about my podcast and knowing the journey I'm on, she decided to talk to her mom in the car, just by herself with her mom up in the heavens. And what happened was she asked her mom for a without a doubt sign, and turns the corner. 5 seconds later, there's an owl in the middle of the road, blocking her from going anywhere, staring her down, and she stops the car, stays there 5 minutes, stares her down. No doubt that was her mom, because 5 seconds earlier she said, "And can you let me know that this is real, that you're here, because I need a without a doubt sign." So just ask for one. That's the simple answer for that.
That's powerful. It makes me think of a story of after my mom passed away, and a dream that I had, and then an occurrence very similar to that I'll save for another time. But in wrapping things up, I have one more question, just because I know a lot of the things that you do is focus on legacy. But how do you want to be remembered?
As somebody who left the world a little bit better than he found it, and revealed light at every opportunity. And whether it's a prospect meeting, a client delivery call, a seminar, a panel discussion where I'm on stage, or a podcast interview, I'm always thinking about, how do I reveal light? That's all.
Well, you've certainly done that today. I appreciate it. I almost moved to tears just because some of those stories, they do really resonate with my own journey. And I think that's the big part of what I want to communicate through this podcast and the work that I do, is that we don't have to have all our shit together. I'm not, faking like I'm got all my stuff together and I'm a king. I'm on the journey, and the journey, I think, never ends, towards improvement. And for me personally, God, having that relationship and moving closer and closer towards aligning myself with source, because I go in and out of that, to me makes all the difference to being guided and led in my day-to-day work. So it seems like you are certainly dialed in on that, and you're a great inspiration and mentor, if even as a new relationship for me too. Be like, man, I can see that the work does pay off just through what you're doing. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And, we're all on this journey together. Some of us are a few steps ahead, some a few steps behind, but we're all just on our way home.
Yeah. Well, and how nice that, again, especially men doing men's work, we can see that, like, okay, I may not be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I can see Stephan, he's going and he's further down. Like, at least follow him, follow the guy that's in front of you, right? And keep having faith that even if it's dark at times, you've got brothers that are on the path. So anyways,
and you can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
If you ask. If you don't ask, you don't get. But if you
Yeah.
ask, incredible things can happen. You can get visions, prophetic dreams,
Yeah.
clairaudience, clairvoyance, all sorts of, like, people are waking up and their psychic abilities are waking up, and their connection to the creator is just getting so strong, and it's just an amazing time to be alive.
Yeah. Amen to that. There's definitely an awakening going on. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. How, if guys want to really reach out and connect with you on just a litany of things that they could probably connect with you on, how can guys, what's the best way to reach out and find you, connect with you?
Well, my website is stephanspencer.com, and my podcasts are Get Yourself Optimized. That's the personal development podcast. That's getyourselfoptimized.com. And my marketing podcast is Marketing Speak, and that's marketingspeak.com.
Cool.
But yeah, you can reach me via email, me@stephanspencer.com. I'm on all the social platforms as well, so you can follow me there. And I'd be happy to assist, happy to connect, happy to help a brother out.
Well, thank you. I really do feel like you've just got an amazing heart, and as a result of doing a lot of work, otherwise you could have been probably on a different trajectory.
Oh yeah, with my childhood, yeah, prison or dead or something, right?
Yeah. But again, your humility to surrender and figure out a way, even if you know, like we did, there's probably another whole big story there of, I don't have the money, but I'm going for it, right? Your commitment to you and your growth was stronger than your commitment to limiting stories, which is pretty cool. So
sometime you'll have to share with your listeners the Corniche story from UPW.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, ask a better question, get a better answer.
Yeah. Yes, 100%. I will. Well, thank you so much for being on. And guys, I really, really highly recommend that you reach out to Stephan and just connect. You know, how often do you have a guy like this who's gone through, done the work, is continuing to do the work, and is open to support you in any way that he can? So, Stephan, thank you.
Thanks, Johnny.
All right, you guys, take care, and thanks for checking in on this episode of the Becoming Kings podcast. We'll catch up with you on the next one. Take care.